In this program, we will show you the techniques needed to create these beautiful and useful dust accessories. In addition to a few tools, you will of course need a horseshoe and some 3 to 4 or 4 to 5 ounce vegetable tanned leather. Where do you find horseshoes? Well, you can find them at some hardware stores, seed and feed stores, and also at the farm and ranch stores. And of course, many times you can find discarded and used ones at flea markets and other places like that. To cover our horseshoe, we're going to need to have a piece of the leather that we're going to use for the top at least an inch and maybe even a little more than an inch bigger all the way around. And the next thing we need to do is dampen it with water. Now in this case, I will dampen both the back side and the front side. We need to get this leather damp all the way through. Not soggy, but damp. And after we have it evenly dampened with water, we'll set it aside for a few minutes and let the leather kind of swell up and become very pliable. After we have allowed the water to penetrate and soften the piece of leather, we can place our horseshoe on the back as you see, and then we can turn it over, place it on our marble, and begin shaping it. I'll first start with my fingers and shape it around the horseshoe, as you can see, and then we can take a bone folder and begin shaping it up against the horseshoe. Take your time and press it into the shape of the horseshoe. It'll probably be necessary to go around the outside of the horseshoe several times, as you see me doing here. Keep pressing and make sure you hold it in place with your other hand. We will turn it over, and when we will apply some permanent contact cement all around the inside, getting up as close to the shoe as you can, maybe even going under it a little bit. And we will give it a liberal coat of this cement. What I'm using is a solvent-based contact cement, which works very, very good, but it's necessary to have plenty of ventilation in your room when you're using this type of cement. Now I've got another piece of vegetable tan leather that's 4 to 5 ounce, and I will make sure it's large enough to cover the area that we've cemented before, and we get good coverage all the way over it. After you have both pieces covered, as you see here, then we will set them aside until the cement becomes tacky on both pieces. The cement is now tacky on both of our pieces of leather, so we can join them, being careful now to make sure we have it placed properly, and just press it down and then we can turn it over. And now, with our fingers first, we can press this into shape, or shall I say, press it into place. And then we can come back with our bone folder and press it down and get a good bond with the cement. Of course, we'll do this all the way around, getting a good bond. If you're concerned about making some marks with the bone folder in this area where it meets up with the shoe, don't be concerned about that, because that's where our stitch line will be. To get an even better bond between the two pieces of leather, take the one or two or both of the figure carving bevelers, and we can use that, as you can see here, to get real close. By doing this, I get a real tight bond between the two pieces of leather. You can also use a modeling tool to improve the line that will become our stitching line. Just push it up against the side of the shoe and bring it around, as you can see here. Next, we will set our wing dividers to about 1/4 of an inch, and we'll very carefully go around the edge as you can see. One of these lines will become our stitch line, and the other line will become the cutting line. It is now time to punch our holes, and the first thing we need to do is decide how we're going to stitch it. You'll notice here I have a regular saddle stitch going around this one, and this one over here I have done a buck stitch with some 1/8 lace. So we can either use an overstitch wheel and an awl to punch our holes, or if we want, we can use a thonging chisel. Today I think I'll use a thonging chisel. To punch my holes, I will punch them on the line that we created with the wing divider, and I'll punch all the way around. After our holes are punched, we'll now very carefully cut along that outside border, and we'll cut all the way through both thicknesses of leather. May have to go through the cut more than once because it's quite thick at this point. After you have punched your holes and cut out the outer perimeter of your piece, if you're going to do any tooling, now is the time to do it. Or you can wait until you do your stitching and then do your tooling. I prefer to do it now so that I can apply my finish before I do my stitching. Now, in here there's always a groove in these horseshoes, and if you press with your finger you can find it, and then if you take the ball modeler you can push it down in that groove, and you can feel when you reach the end. We'll do that on both sides. Be careful when you get to the end. Don't try to push too far. And it works best to do that with the ball modeler. And then you can come back and put some nail holes if you want. I find it difficult to find the nail holes in here, but if you just take a thonging chisel and kind of make a few marks with your thonging chisel, it will give you the effect of having nail holes in there. And this is how your paperweight looks after you have punched in the nail holes. Now it's time to do our stitching. You have several options. One, you can saddle stitch it as you see here. You can do a buck stitch as I did on this one, or you can do a double loop stitch around the outside. Please note on this one we have cut out the inner part of the shoe. After the stitching is complete, you can use your edge beveler and bevel the edges, and later on you can dampen the edge and slick it with your edge slicker. After you have finished slicking, you can apply the edge finish of your choice.